The memories of the crack of bone and the tearing of flesh fading along with the footsteps of ghoulish attackers fading into the depths of the Marquee. Our adventurers find themselves at a cross point. Should they continue into the darkness, or should they return to town, licking their wounds and counting the meager pittance that they've found so far? Welcome back to the Grand Marquee at Ulan's Gate. It's been a while. I've made a couple amendments to the way that the Ode to 74 system works. Haven't reprinted it, but I figured I could tell you for a fact that I realized I'm doing a couple things incorrectly when it comes to the solo dungeon adventure. So, instead of doing a reprint and reworry, I'm going to try again, and this time do it by the book, or by the magazine, as it may be. And then our heroes, having forgotten what happened in the interposing months between the videos, decide to move on. Having emerged from their hiding place in the side room, Agram Whitehand takes the lead. He has the most hit points and good armor, and he will be flanked by a reluctant Ulvamore. Ulvamore is equally difficult to hit, but far less tough about taking one. So, hopefully, it won't come to that. In the middle, we have our magic users, Azura and Sahin, and Prax will take up the rear, having sustained injuries, taking him to the point of death, but not quite over. With the first half of our move, we will walk into the space formerly occupied by ghouls and see what we find. 6. Door. See Table 11. To determine the placement of the door, we will roll a 12-sided die, having determined that these are in fact Roman numerals, and we're looking at Table 2. 12. The door is straight ahead. Between our previous room and here is about 40 feet, so we will mark the half of the turn and spend the remainder listening, recalling that up to 3 characters can listen at a time. Oh, if something is there, we hear it. Now, to determine what is on the other side of the door, again using a 12-sided die. A 10 will take us into a room where we then roll on Table 5 and roll a second 10. This being a rectangular room, 20 feet by 40 feet. I don't believe, or I don't remember, if there are rules for rise versus run, so we'll do an odd or even. On an odd, the room tends northward. Even, the room tends east to west. Even. And lastly, the most important thing, what we probably should have done first, we identify the content of the room. With a 4, the room is empty. So, despite our successful listen, we hear nothing. Recalling that the ghouls retreated in this direction, we will put a spike on the door preceding and attempt to force our way in. At least one success, so we force our way in, no problem. We'll leave a spike on this door too, just in case. and we'll light up another torch, having exhausted the current. Next, we know that the ghouls have exited through this space, but we need to find out how many exits they may have taken. 6. A roll of 6 on any size, there will be 1 to 4 exits, rolling to determine. 4. This dungeon got a lot bigger. I will randomly determine the wall on which each can be found. With 3 in the north wall and 1 in the south, we've got some listening to do. There are 5 party members and 4 new doors. So we'll split our efforts and take it in 2 turns. 3 will listen and 2 will listen, and we will spend half and half to see what's behind each of these doors. If there is something behind the first door, we will find it, but we'll check to see if it's a monster. With a 6 on our roll, there is no monster to be heard. Next, we'll listen to the center door. If there is something, we don't hear it. And then on our following half, if there is something, I don't remember. Do we hear on a 1 and 6, or do I hear on a 2 and 6? Here it is. Page 7 of my current printout. Humans have a 1 in 6 chance. So I heard nothing. Now, the south door. If there is something to hear, we don't hear it. This area is fairly quiet. But knowing as we do that the south door likely doesn't lead very far, it hemming in on all sides by parts of the Marquee we've already explored, we'll try to force our way through that door first. We will have our magic users and Prax attempt to force the door. No successes. We'll mark half of a turn, and we'll try again. We heard no sound, so surely nothing is on the other side. And we get it on our second attempt. What is beyond this door? Room. Makes sense. So we don't know what's in it because we didn't hear anything, so we didn't roll for content. But we'll do that first. And with a 17, there's both a monster and a treasure. Perhaps this is where the ghouls had come to rest. But first, we'll see how large the space is. 11. Rectangular, 40 by 60. I will not attempt to determine randomly where it goes because there's only so much space that this thing can take up. So I will draw it in where it makes sense. And I will draw it in correctly because while I did roll an 11, a room, not a chamber, is 30 by 40. Are there any further exits? With a 5, we cross-reference the size of the room. 30 by 40 is 1,200 square feet, and a 5 over 1,200 square feet means there is 1 exit, one which we've already entered through. Or perhaps 1 in a random wall. We'll give it a 50-50. 4. There are no other exits. I think going forward, though, knowing that there exists the possibility of a 0 result on the room exits table, we'll just keep it at rolled exits are in addition to the one you just came in. Further, we'll give it a 50-50 that this is where the ghouls went. 8. This is not where the ghouls went. But now we have to determine what we've bumped into and what treasure it's guarding. We are on the first level of the dungeon, and we've rolled a 1 here, so we will cross-reference our level 1 monsters with an 8-sided die. Rolling a natural 1, kobolds. Kobolds appear in 40 to 400. However, because we're not in a lair, so to speak, we will give it 4d10. 25 kobolds. Surprised ones, at that. But I guess I would be surprised too, in their shoes. Is the party surprised? Yes. Well, that sort of makes sense because we thought the room would have been empty. But in the room, we will also notice whatever treasure the kobolds were hoarding. Stocking, based on the level of the dungeon, we will find 500 silver pieces and a 50-50 shot of gold. Yes, to the amount of 10. 5% chance of a magic item and gems, respectively. Neither. Are these kobolds from the same tribe as our previous? We'll give it a yes-no. Apparently so. But let's see if they're equally friendly. The party will make no aggressive movements and attempt to communicate in common. Our reaction roll of a 6 indicates that they are unsure of us, but surely we may be able to talk our way out. There is a good chance at least one of them speaks common, and we'll ask if they knew the kobolds in the next room. With an uncertain response, I'm not sure how they will say. They will respond in the affirmative. Perhaps they're looking for them, brethren who had been chased off by the ghouls from whom this was also hiding. But now we've got to think on our feet, because if they know we know about the ghouls, then we're bringing them bad news. I'm sorry to say, brethren kobold, but we found them, and it did not go well. Our party is majority lawful, so while it seems fair to say they'd be disinclined to straight up lie, at the same time, kobolds are chaotic creatures in and of themselves, so there's really no malice to misrepresenting the truth. The party decides to speak truly. Forgive me, my kobold brethren, but we came across them in our travels and aimed to ambush the ghouls, but the ghouls sprung their own trap and were too powerful, having overcome your brethren and one of our own. Technically, that last bit is true. One of our own was killed, just by something else. We have average charisma in the party, so we'll roll to see how they take it. And with a 9, that's a favorable. They believe us, and don't blame us. In fact, this area is dangerous. Sometimes being hunted down is part of the experience, especially when you're separated from the wider pack. So what next? It seems most likely that this rescue party, having learned of its failure, is simply moving back to report on their findings. Should we accompany with you? Strengthen numbers, and you might know the road better than we. With an 8, our reaction is uncertain. Why would you come with us? We have nothing in common. We will go about our way, and you can go about your own. Why are you in the Marquee? No one among your kind comes down here with clear motives. We will go about our way. You may go yours. That's fair enough. But as you go, perhaps give us one piece of intelligence, you who are native to this underground labyrinth. The ghouls, do they have a home base? Do they have a lair to which they are retreating? The answer will be the affirmative, but do they tell us? The result is uncertain. We don't know, they say. They hunt us when we are outnumbered, and we avoid them. We don't know where they would have gone, but we will leave through the door on the left. You may go through either of your choosing, but we ask that you not follow us. We will respect that, but in the interest of treasure hunting, if these kobolds were truly hiding, is the treasure that's on them or with them theirs? We will give it a shot. 2 dice against. And what I'm doing here, I could assign a percentage roll, but I've seen other people do this. I've got a green die, a red die, and the red die is a no, the green die is a yes. We'll give this one 2 dice. That'll be fun. The gold is not theirs. According to the magazine, our strategic review reprint, unguarded treasure will be hidden. So our kobolds leave, and we have 5 chances to find it, 1 for each party member. We only needed 1. So, with Agram and Prax watching the door, our remaining 3, we'll say Sahane found it. But that's interesting, because Sahane is our chaotic plant. How would she know where the treasure was? Either way, it's found, and we'll add a half of a turn for our conversation, a full turn for our search, and then to our treasure we will add 500 silver pieces as well as 10 gold. We'll figure out how to distribute that. We shouldn't be at a point where we are too overburdened. The party returns after collecting the treasure that they found. We'll say that takes half a turn. To room number 13. They will not spike the door, as they have no reason to go back there. From here, the kobolds said they were going to go to the leftmost door, or west, for folks keeping track of cardinal directions. So our party has to figure out which way it wants to go. We can respect the kobold's desire, or we can follow them. I'll give it 4 in 10 chance that we will go right, 4 in 10 left, and then the remainder center, or the remainder is following the kobolds. 3. We go to the right. The first thing to do is to force the door, which we get on our first try. Next, we'll identify what is in the room and its dimensions. What is beyond this door? passage straight ahead. Checking back on our periodic check, table 1, does it say the distance? If no room is beyond a door, check again on table 1 after 30 feet. Okay. 10, 20, 30. The movement rate of our party being 6 inches, we'll mark the half of the turn, and then we'll determine what is beyond our position. 12. Side passage, table 3. Check again in 30 feet. So, what I have been doing up until this point, I had this kind of veer off in another direction, but it dawns on me that produces a pretty linear dungeon. The assumption here being there's a passage that goes off to one side, but then the hallway we're in continues. That will produce a much more spiderwebbed version of the dungeon. And then we can roll on table 3 to see what our side passage is. 11. 4-way intersection. To the east, this will take our corridor into contact with room number 8. In the event that this occurs, if a passage or door is indicated in a wall where the space occupied beyond the wall has been mapped, then the exit is either a secret door or one way. Because we didn't find the secret door when we were in room 8, let's give it a shot. We'll give it the 50-50 that the door was present and it's naturally going to be secret. But then we'll give it the 3-6 that it is one way as well. It is a secret one-way door, an entrance into the 8th room. We will spike the door to room 13 behind us just in case, so that we have a fast way out. And why not? We will search to see if we find that hidden door. Let's see, and one more may search. Nope. We don't know about that door. It just seems like the wall terminates. But that brings us to the end of the 5th turn in this sequence. And so we will rest one full turn and light up a new torch. Now you may have recalled that some of our characters have lanterns and lantern oil. We could use that, but in the short term, my thought process is we'll use torches because they are cheap. We'll keep the flasks of oil in case we need to beat a hasty, fiery retreat. And once we get too deep and run out of torches, it is unlikely that we will run out of lanterns on our way back to town. So, we've rested a turn. To this point, I have not been using the random encounter rolls because wandering monsters can occur as a result on the periodic check for finding out what's in front of you. But I feel like a wandering monster could potentially come at us if we're resting in a corridor. It does. Hopefully, it's another set of those kobolds. Jumping back to our wandering monster table, it will be from the first level list, 8. Got to check the PDF. That's better. Giant spiders. We appear to have taken respite in the den or the hunting grounds of some form of giant arachnid. Now, the rules do not have specific rules for spiders. However, there is an entry for small animals or large insects. It's not a lot of rule, but it exists. So, these being large insects, we will treat them as such. Unless otherwise appropriate, small animals or large insects fight as unarmored +1 with 2 dice for the accumulation of damage. However, because these are spiders, we're going to say a bite will trigger a save versus poison. Is that poison fatal? Oh yes. So, if any of our heroes takes damage from one of these spiders, but does not die, they're going to need to pass a save versus poison, or move on to the great beyond. Now, how many spiders are there? 22. You'll note some of these are d12s. I halved those. I have more 6-sided dice, the rules calling for 6d6 of these creatures to appear, but I didn't feel like getting up and going in to get them. So, half of a d12 it is. Further, 66 is a lot of spiders. Now, especially considering they are 2 dice for the accumulation of damage compared to the 1 that each of our characters has. But, because the numbers given are wide-ranging and may reflect what a group in the wilderness would be, we have the option to reduce that number to something more level appropriate. Now, I don't want to take up too much pity on this party, but I also want to know if the combat system works, how it plays with the 2d6 rolls. So, I'm going to rule that only a subset, 1d6, of these spiders came out. 5. That is still a massive odds, but we'll see how it goes. The first question to answer: are we surprised? No, fortunately. The spiders are incapable of being surprised. We have torches lit, we are hanging out in an open area, which is probably unwise, so they know we're here, and it was their intent to ambush. We are not surprised, so the party will see the bad guys coming. They will appear 20 feet from us, off into the gloom. But do they come from north or west? West. The party, knowing they're coming, can back into the corridor, the rules indicating that 3 may fight abreast. The hall will easily be blocked, negating the advantage of numbers that the spiders possess. The party will retreat into the corridor and let the spiders come. To declare actions, our spellcasters will hang out in the rear with Sahane, who memorized the potent sleep spell, choosing to cast it, and she begins her arcane incantations. Following this initiative, the party has the advantage. They will choose to allow their adversaries to move first, and as they round the corner, we will say that the sleep spell has a chance to go off. But we need to stick to the order of operations. First, movement. The side moving first moves all of their own characters up to half of their movement. The second side performs the same. Any split fire or whatever occurs, and then the second group moves into artillery. That's confusing. So, what happens after initiative is rolled, the side that moves first, and I may choose, as I have won, to allow the enemy to go first, moves 1/2 of their movement. Then, my side, the winning side, may perform any pass-through fire as appropriate. Then, they will complete the balance of their movement, as will I. From here, we're going to resolve our sleep spell as they get into pass-through fire. Per the spell, 2d6 creatures with 2 dice for the accumulation of damage or more within a range of 24 inches are immediately put to slumber. 4. Only one of the 5 spiders remains, leaving the last spider to face 3 fighting men in line. Typically, at this point, we would roll a morale check in that if these are unarmored, they need to test for instability at about, if I remember correctly, 25%. While the spider passes his morale check, the technical rule is once you hit the 2nd level of instability, it should skitter and flee into the darkness. But again, I want to see if using the man-to-man combat system plays well. So, in he goes. The current booklet does not have rules for creatures that don't have weapons or weapon equivalents, what their weapon length should be. At the end of the day, nothing beats the resolution power of a simple d6. So we're going to roll and see the weapon length for the spider. 6. I figure it fits, as this is the same die that we roll for initiative in subsequent editions of the game. I figure this is also fair because this is the same die we roll when determining who moved first, so we might as well leverage it in melee. The spider concludes its movement to attack the party. Per the first strike rules, the attacker will strike first unless a defender has a weapon with a length 2 points or greater than his own. The spider, having rolled a 6, will strike first against Prax, whose Morning Star is also of length 6, and will strike first against Ulvamore, who uses a mace, length 3. However, Agram Whitehand carries a Lucerne hammer, the stats of which I'm using are polearm. Against an unarmed defender, Agram will need a 8 or better to connect. 8 on the nose. 1 die worth of damage, the man equivalence of our hero, is dealt to the spider. 6 points of damage. But the spider is a 2-die creature. How many damage can it accumulate before succumbing? 7. Average, but that means it will get a counter-strike against one of our allies. On a 1, 2, or 3, we'll say he attacks the polearm wielder who struck him, and then on a 4, 5, 6, he will split the attack between 1 or 2 of the others. 6. Now, I realize I should have rolled a die that was divisible by 3. Odds, he will attack Prax. Evens, Ulvamore. Odd. Uh-oh. Prax is in trouble. With 5 points of damage, he can only sustain 1 more before succumbing. But at least he won't have to roll his save versus poison. Again, the proto-rules I'm using don't have information that pertains to specifically unarmored attacking an armored foe. However, we do have troop type. For monster attacks, that is exactly what we use. Considering that this is not a mounted enemy, we'll use the infantry bracket, and there is no unarmored category, but we're at unarmored +1, so we might as well call it light. Prax is wearing plate armor. That makes him an armored target, so it will require 3 individuals to even consider doing him harm. We will give the spider a chance because it is +1, but with a 4, that's nowhere near the 0 that I think would be fair for him to roll. Next, 2 attacks come in, one from Prax, and then the final from Ulvamore. Prax, wielding his Morning Star, will need a 6 or better in order to hit an unarmed opponent. The +1 arguably makes it 7, which he manages. At least 1 point of damage is dealt, the spider is defeated, and Ulvamore is given some respite. This combat went much smoother than the previous. We'll say that our party goes about the unconscious arachnids and smashes their craniums, preventing them from doing any harm to the party. Wandering monsters do not carry treasure. Spiders in particular carry no treasure. However, the party has lived to fight another day, or to delve another tunnel. Fresh off of that victory, the party completes its rest. A turn is marked, and a decision needs to be made. High off of their unscathed approach, should the party continue north, potentially following in the ghoul's footsteps, or west, potentially rounding the curve to where the kobolds had gone to their den? Or should the party retreat, lick their wounds, and tally their treasure? To date, they have 750 electrum pieces, which are very curious, because they can be worth either half or double their count in gold. The rules do technically say that the referee must decide beforehand, but I didn't, so I figure it's only fair to give it a roll of the dice. What would you do? The decision is the party's, but the party may listen to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And between now and next episode, when that decision is revealed, delve on.